loud noise, engine stalls. We're dead. We're completely dead. A few years ago, I was online looking for Corvairs, and I was on Facebook Marketplace, and I found this really nice Survivor, 1961. It's a 500 series, so it's a base model, but I really like Survivor cars. I don't think I'm like a total patina guy, but I like them a little bit aged, and I think it's part of the story. This car was made, and then it went through all this stuff, and now here it is, and I'm gonna take care of it. I was looking at this car, and they wanted quite a bit for it, and I knew that it wasn't a wise decision. It wasn't a wise choice. So I forgot about it. And then a little bit later, my wife, she says, you know that wagon you wanted really bad? I said, yeah. She's like, you should call the guy and see if it's still for sale, because I've been saving some money and you have some, and together we can get this. I know you really want it. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. She's amazing. I love her to death. And so I made the phone call, and he informed me that it had just sold a couple of days prior. So I was heartbroken again, but that's okay. I can go back on Facebook Marketplace and look for another wagon. So a couple days later, Jamie hands me a plane ticket, and she has one for herself, and she says we're flying to Bozeman, Montana. And I'm like, well, why are we flying to Bozeman, Montana? And then she handed me the title to that car. And so I was very excited and very happy. And like I said, I told you she was amazing. So we flew into Bozeman, Montana, and we had about 45 or 50 miles drive into Wyoming to pick this car up. But it's exactly what I was looking for. It's a rust-free, dent-free. It looks like it spent its life under a carport and wasn't driven in any bad weather, like no salt or anything like that. So even though my wife paid probably more than it was worth, it was a good, solid car, and I was extremely happy to have it. One thing that I'd failed to bring was a spare fan belt, and if you don't run the right fan belt on a Corvair, you're going to have a very bad experience with Corvairs. If you run the right one, you won't have any problems at all. So I was worried about the fan belt, but the car actually drove really well. We got in it, it fired right up. We did a couple loops around the streets there, and I'm like, I think this will make it. And of course, the owner, the gentleman that sold it to me, was very startled that we were going to try to drive it 700 miles home. I've even got a lot of questions about this, like, what does Jamie think about this? And Jamie's just not worried. She knows that I'll get her home. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together. We head off, and it's a beautiful drive. We're driving through these canyons and by this lake. And just as we get out of the canyon, and it's like, okay, now we're into the real Wyoming, loud noise, engine stalls, we're dead. We're completely dead. And before I went back there and looked, I knew what had happened. I knew that the distributor shaft had seized in the distributor housing, twisted everything. I popped the back hatch. There's a little hatch you can look in there. And I see that the distributor's twisted and the vacuum canister is mangled, and it went into the fan belt. Popped the fan belt off, kind of did some damage to it. Cut one of the spark plug wires. Like, there's carnage we just don't have parts for. I've got one option, and that's to put it back together and get it running. So I had basic tools. So I was able to take the distributor out, and it was seized solid. There was no spinning it. I didn't have a vise or anything I could get on it to break it free. It was solid, stuck. The distributor cap had come off. They're retained with the spring clips. It had come off, and the rotor was mangled because it had hit the side of the distributor cap. It actually poked a hole and cracked the distributor cap too. So things weren't looking super good. But I took everything out, and I looked at all of it, and I decided that if I could get the distributor free, that it would run again. I took all my tools out and laid all of them out where I could see them. Took all of my assets, like I brought my bottle of oil out and my paper towel, shop towels, like everything that was in the car was laid out. And I didn't have a spare belt. I mean, you've got to understand, I didn't have any tools that I needed to do this next procedure. So the first thing I had to do was press a roll pin out of the gear that's on the shaft. And I don't remember what I used, like a little tiny screw or a bolt and a pair of pliers as a hammer. And I knocked that roll pin out and was able to take the distributor gear off of there. I was holding the housing and I made a cushion of shop towels, and I'm just hitting the end of that shaft trying to break that free and see if we could get it to move. And I finally got it kind of moving where I could just, and it was messed up, but we got it kind of moving. About that time, a gentleman stopped, and his name was Joel, and he had some tools in the back of his car. And the tools he had that I didn't have is he had a hammer and he had some brake cleaner in a can. So with his hammer and brake cleaner, I figured we'd be able to complete this job. So using the hammer gently, I finally got the shaft tapped out of there, and it was a mess. It was like you would imagine. It was galled, and it had chunks of what was once molten steel. So it was not in good shape. It was heavily galled. It did not spin freely. The bushings in the distributor housing were very roached. But it's all we had. That's what we had. There was a lot of sand where we were at. So I took a shop towel and I soaked it in oil. And I rubbed it in the sand. And then I just spun that shaft. I just kept working on it and working on it and working on it. So it was still rough. Like, it was very topographical. But now all the edges were smooth. And I could put it back in there and check it. And it was turning really rough, and so I'd pull it out and I keep doing it. And then the same thing, I was able to take a screwdriver and the same makeshift sandpaper and just hone that out on the inside. On the high spots on that shaft, I had a stone I had on my knee, and I'm just rubbing the stone on that. So between the makeshift sandpaper and the stone honing, we got it back together. So when I finally got the distributor to what I considered to be satisfactory for the service it needed to perform, put it back together, and then I was able to put the fan belt back on, and it had been damaged, but I thought it might make it to the auto parts store where we can even get the wrong belt will be better than this one that's damaged. It fired right up. It was idling a little rougher, and you can imagine that the dwell on the points was whatever it happened to be at any given point, because it was quite loose in there. If you've ever driven across Wyoming, there is absolutely nothing. And so we drove through nothing, and I don't remember the distance, but it was somewhere between 60 and 200 miles before we got to a parts store that had a belt, and they didn't have the right length of belt. They had a belt that was about a 1/4 inch shorter. And so I tested it to see if it would fit. I could get it on there, but the pulleys weren't quite lined right. And I decided, after looking at the original belt that was on there, that was the better choice. So I took it off for a spare and put the original belt back on, and it made the trip on the original belt. We kept it, 50 miles an hour. We drove all the way across Wyoming and all the way across Utah at 50 miles an hour, which was probably a good idea anyway because of the old bias ply tires. They didn't have a date code on them because they were pre-date code tires. So I don't even know when they started putting those on. So as the trip progressed, the car started running worse and worse and became increasingly hard to start. Once it was started, it would run okay, and you had to kind of 2-foot it at stoplights and stuff. And luckily it was a Power Glide, automatic transmission. So you kind of 2-foot it and keep it running. But to make the problem exponentially worse is the starter started going out. So it was the Bendix drive. So you'd be like, whir, 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 catch, and then crank it. And if it didn't start, you'd have to do the whir a couple more times. And every time it just got worse and worse. So that was what I was most afraid of, is that we eventually weren't going to be able to get it started. And it wouldn't stay running at gas stations and stuff. But we did. We made it home 700 miles without too many more events. It's my personal Sunday driver. It lives in my garage, and it does need a little bit of work. I put a new old stock distributor in it since then, but the fuel pump went out on it, so I haven't driven it recently. And finding reliable mechanical fuel pumps is a real problem. And I don't want to put an electric fuel pump on this Survivor, so we're waiting until a good pump comes out.
I'm at the Lars Anderson Auto Museum, home of America's oldest car collection, and they are holding a sweepstakes where one of you is going to win this Porsche 992. You can enter at the link in the description below, and you will have an amazing car, but much more importantly, you'll be helping keep America's car culture alive. The Lars Anderson Auto Museum is the hub of New England car culture, and that is why every week here on the grounds, there's something amazing happening. So if you're in the Boston area, come say hey, and either way, enter to win this thing because it's awesome.